All right, welcome to a new episode of the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That is Baylin Trujillo and AJ Brooks. Guys, we're almost 1/3 away through the regular season. It's amazing how fast this happens. But we had a lot of action in week 3. We've got our dudes of the week tonight for week 3. We've got our new top 10. And we're going to take a look at 9 of the biggest games coming up for week 4. But first, let's give a shout out live on Varsity Sports Nation, sponsored by Influencer Council, Big Hits Live Top 10. We got a lot going on, guys. But let's get right in. Oh, by the way, we got Jon Santucci from the USA Today joining us here in a little while as well. So let's get right in to week 3, guys. And let's start with Dr. Phillips, the number 6 team in our region, taking out Apopka 6-3, Balin.
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot closer than I anticipated. Obviously, weather plays a factor in an offense that likes to throw the ball a lot. So Dr. Phillips was pretty limited there. I think Stanley Anderson was the only one to score a touchdown that night. Apopka played great defense. No discredit to them. Again, that's a team that I picked the last couple of weeks to win in their matchups. But we both picked Dr. Phillips in this game. They did come away with the victory. Good teams find a way to win in ugly games. And I think a couple of our bigger football programs did that this week, including Dr. Phillips. So they come away with a 6-3 win. This is the first time they've beaten Apopka in several years. So I know they've been itching their way to get a victory against this rivalry opponent. They have not found a way to do so in the last couple of years. They've always lost in the last possession to Apopka. Now they finally got it on the other side of things and won in the last possession. So great job to Dr. Phillips and winning a close battle in the rain.
Yeah, and AJ, I don't know if this is lack of production on the offense or if this is more great defense on both sides, but Malachi Wright had a big interception in this game.
Yeah, Malachi Wright, he had a 72-yard interception return along with that interception. But Dr. Phillips is a senior-led team, so I expect them to go in and win these type of ball games against Apopka. Like Balin said, they haven't been able to get over the hump in the last few years. So it was good to see Coach Wells and the crew take care of business on the road against the Blue Daughters.
All right. Dr. Phillips now 2-0. Apopka drops to 2-1. Let's move on. How about Lake Nona going into Ocoee? Ocoee comes away 30-3, Balin.
Yeah, what I tell you in my last prediction last week, I said Ocoee by 21 plus. And Dan, you said 21's a lot of points. Guys, I mean, I've done my research. I know Lake Nona is still trying to figure things out offensively. A lot of that stuff is run through Michael Dove, their quarterback, which he's a special talent, obviously committed to Navy. But Ocoee, I just feel like their defense is elite. They got one of the best, if not the best, linebacker / defense end in this area. And I think that they're a team that can get hot late, and they're starting to find their identity on offense and scoring up some points. So I knew this was going to be a blowout. I'm pretty sure it was 30-6, I believe. I think Michael Dove scored in this game. But Ocoee did come away with a 21-plus victory in this one. This is it's a good test for Ocoee, but Lake Nona needs to find some answers really quickly because they got a tough one this week.
AJ, they had a great running game with the Jamarian Robinson, 18 carries, 150 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, Jamarian Robinson is a very, very athletic running back. Brother is Jamin Robinson, cornerback at Arizona State. So it shows you the pedigree and the talent that they have in their family. But yeah, Jamarian is a terrific running back. I expect him to continue these type of games throughout the season. He's someone that Ocoee offense will have to depend on week in and week out. So, yeah, he had a terrific game, and I expect this throughout the year.
All right. Ocoee goes to 2-1. Lake Nona at 1 I believe Lake Nona now. I want to make sure I've got these records right here.
1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Lake Nona is now – they 1 and 2? Okay. Yeah. Well, no, they're 1-1. They're 1-1. All right. So we move on. O'Galley, the number 10 team, takes out Heritage 21-0, Balin.
Yeah, this was an impressive victory. We both called O'Galley to win this game. another O on their record, and another O in a shutout victory for O'Galley. This is honestly one of my favorite teams to talk about, to continue to cover. Obviously, training Joseph Allen and company. This is a pretty impressive victory. I mean, this is a really good ball club at Heritage, well-coached team, a lot of talent. To shut them out was really impressive for O'Galley. Again, this is a team that, did pretty well overall. I know the score didn't dictate that, but against Seminole, which is a very powerhouse program here, and for O'Galley to just shut them out like that was very impressive for that. So, I mean, 21-0. It looks kind of close, but that's a mercy rule in Madden. So, this is a really, really impressive win for O'Galley and company.
AJ, they got a pretty good guy on defense there. Josh Roberts had 12 tackles and 3 tackles for a loss in that game.
Yeah, Josh had a terrific game. He's a high recruit. Very interested to see what school he ends up going to, but Josh Roberts had a terrific game. Also, AJ Forehand had 11 tackles in the secondary, and then X-Man, the 4-star defensive back, he had 2 interceptions. So when you get those type of results, it'll lead to a 21-0 victory.
And I have a sneaky feeling that O'Galley is going to move up in our polls this week too. We're going to have to check that out here shortly. All right, this is another big game that we saw was Boone at Olympia, but Boone takes care of business, 27-7, Balin.
Yep, another blowout that I called. Boone High School, they're averaging over 300 yards of offense in 3 games, and even the game they lost against I believe a Pennsylvania team that came down here, they still put up big, massive offensive numbers. This is an offense that is starting to really improve itself. Obviously, Sam Johnson and company. This is someone we're going to really look closely at as the season progresses, especially when we get into district play. But Boone High School takes care of Olympia in a blowout fashion. Olympia, I mean, I don't know where we go from here. I know they beat Horizon 14-0, which is their only victory this year. But I know Travis has something up his sleeve. I know he's going to find a way to get this team rallying around it. I know they got a good test this week, a team that they could possibly win against Timber Creek. But, man, Olympia, I don't understand what's going on over there, because this is not usually the spread that we see when they play in big ball games. So credit to Boone High School. They are taking care of business.
AJ, I know Olympia lost a lot of seniors.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and then shout out to Aiden.
Yeah, you're breaking up, but yeah, we hear you.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And AJ, they again, I know that Olympia lost a lot of seniors. They were really senior heavy last year. But how about Brian BJ Davis, 8 carries for 78 yards and a touchdown?
Yeah, big ball game for BJ. But as you mentioned, Olympia lost 22 seniors last year. And I believe all of them are actually playing at some level of college football. But when you have that type of production walk out of the door, you're going to have those swings, and that's just high school football. I talked to Trav on Saturday at the Jones-Evans game, and we talked about it. It's just a part of the high school football cycle, so to speak. But Boone they have some seniors, Daniel Smith, Ethan Barnett, LeGarren Wilson's coming back from injury. This is a pretty good ball club, so I'm not surprised to see this score at all.
Hey, and we talked about Isaiah. Shout out to Romello Ware. Northern Illinois, man, knocked off Notre Dame. All right, let's move on. The Land goes into Merritt Island, takes out the undefeated Mustangs, 35-28. Balin, this was a close game. We knew it was going to be a close game. Very young teams, but we got a young. You hear me?
There we go. Break it up a little.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We got bad weather. It's causing these internet glitches here all week. But no, we talked about DeLand knocking off a very close game with Merritt Island. The Mustangs, they take out the Mustangs 35-28. But we got a young freshman here, Balin, that has one heck of a night. 11 carries for 141 yards and a touchdown, and T.R. Moore.
Yeah, that's the brother of T.J. Moore, the quarterback that the record-setting quarterback at DeLand the last couple of years. So his younger brother, a freshman, is the real deal. He's a name you're going to want to remember. This kid's an elite talent, and Delandis, it's a team that is a sleeper in our polls, and this is an impressive win against a good Merritt Island team. Gave them their first loss of the season.
Yeah, no doubt, AJ. This is a Merritt Island team that we saw at media days, and very impressive to get their first loss. It's part of that cycle, like you said before.
Absolutely, yeah. Merritt Island is on the upside right now, but talking about Mr. Moore, I'll go ahead and say a bold statement. I believe he is the best freshman skill player in Central Florida. He is a Little League legend, and he's just coming to high school, picking up where he left off. The kid is super impressive. Getting snaps in the Darlington offense as a freshman and being this productive is very impressive.
Yeah, you got to be pretty excited to be running back in a single wing offense. That's definitely for sure. All right, big game here. Siana takes out St. Cloud 19-7. Siana is undefeated at 3-0, Balin.
Yeah, Cameron Brown, quarterback, Siana. We don't really talk about him much. He's kind of been in the transfer portal in high school, a couple different programs, but he found a home in Siana, and they're rolling now. This is an upset to me. St. Cloud was averaging over 42 points a game coming into this matchup. I thought this was going to be obviously a comfortable victory. I believe I called 2 touchdowns last week in my prediction, so yes, I was wrong. But weather is part of the state of Florida that we live in. That's part of the game that we play in. And if you're one-dimensional and just a spread offense, you're going to have to find a running game. And it clearly showed that Siana found some things to do on the ground here. And St. Cloud got beat. This was, again, a game that I did not call. I know St. Cloud better figure things out because they got a tough task this weekend and in Osceola. But yeah, this was not a game that I saw coming, Dan.
Yeah, AJ, Taryn Mallard, first-year head coach at Siana, has done a really good job.
Yeah, T. Mallard has the boys. He has them believing. He's come in 3-0, terrific start to the season. Ernest Nunn, Cam Brown, and the crew. They look good. I didn't expect this victory as well. So, but I'm happy for them. See if they can continue this success, 3-0. See if they can continue to get another victory this week.
All right, we talked about St. Cloud's got a big matchup we're going to talk about later in the day. But number 2, Jones gets a squeaker with Evans, 28-21, Balin. Darian Coleman, 25 of 28 for 261 and a rushing touchdown and passing touchdown.
Yeah, he nearly had a perfect night. Honestly, he took over the game himself. Obviously, we have guys like Larry and Vernell Brown to help out with. But, I mean, look at the numbers. 25 for 28. It's nearly perfect game. And he threw an interception right before halftime on a Hail Mary. They tried to make something happen. So, I mean, other than that, he looked pretty good. I know Evans is now a program that's, 1 and 2 doesn't really dictate the type of program that is. I'm a believer now. Obviously, a game like this in a rivalry game, it really doesn't matter about the records. You could kind of throw that out the window. It's just like college football. But unless you're the Florida Gators and they play in Miami, that was ugly. But in this sense, Jones High School, they came with the victory here. They found a way to win like good teams do. And, man, great job, Evans. Coach Odom texted me after the game. He's just like, hey, we're a team to really talk about on your show. And, a couple years from now, they'll need another trigger man. So, this program could be back to what it was in the 90s, which I'm excited about because I think Orlando's better when Evans is at the top. So this is a really good showing for Evans. And obviously Jones is the pretty much the biggest powerhouse in Central Florida. And they went toe-to-toe, actually had a halftime lead. So this was a lot interesting matchup here, but Jones does come with the victory. And shout out to the Miami commit Darian Coleman for putting his team on the back.
AJ, Balin's right. Evans seems to be getting better and better. The talent that I've seen on that team, talking to Coach Odom, but 2 very, very close losses. I mean, this is a growing program, and they're learning how to win.
Yeah, this program is a couple of plays away from being undefeated. But Carlos Odom, Coach Fletch, Coach Hand, Malcolm, they're doing a great job. The guys believe in them. The kids believe in what they're preaching to them, and it shows. 28-21, like Baylin said, they were up at halftime 14-7, and the only points they gave up was on an interception return, pick 6 by freshman phenom Dimitri Pryor. So you take away that pick 6, and
AJ,
they're up 14.
another top freshman in Central Florida. You mentioned your boy.
Yeah,
Miles
that. Okay, so look, so T Moore, he the top on offense, and Michi hands down is the top freshman DB in the area. It's not even close.
Yeah.
But I do want to give a shout out real quick to Devontae Grant for Evans. He played a terrific game. He had 11 tackles, had an interception. He's the holder for the PAT field goals. He's a wide receiver, safety, DB. He does a little bit of everything for Evans. So I wanted to give him a shout out. And D4, he had 105 yards as well. Good rushing game for him as well.
All right. So obviously Jones moves on to 2-0. They got a makeup game here with Winter Park. It's going to be here in a couple weeks. We'll give them 2 games in 1 week as well, making up for that week 1 rain out that we had here across Central Florida. Guys, this is a big game. Everybody talked about this around the state. Jones goes to IMG, but IMG was just a little bit too much. 34-13, Baylin.
Yeah, thank goodness AJ did not flip his pick in the predictions. That's why we're even this week, because this was not close. Brady took a beating. I did talk to Jon Santucci after the game. He called me and was like, if anybody needs an ice bath, Brady probably needs about 6 of them. The trenches is pretty much where the game was won. I think that Coco still matches up with IMG when we're talking about skill players, but that the trenches is really the deciding factor in this. And putting pressure on Brady Hart is not easy to do, and they did that all night. And he did not look like, from what I hear, wasn't really comfortable, and it just was tough. And Javon Boggs, shout out to him. He scored a long touchdown there. Brady also scored a rushing touchdown. They kept it close in the first half. But they just kind of, just got pulled away. And Dan, I believe you're at this game, so you can talk a little bit about this as well from your vantage point. But I still believe Coco, and that's why they didn't move down in our rankings. I mean, honestly, anybody against IMG, that's really not a fair matchup here. But yeah, Coco just ran into a giant, and unfortunately, there may be 1 or 2 offensive linemen from really making this a really good game.
Yeah, and AJ. John Garcia, Andy Villamarzo. There was really a lot of media here at this particular game. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to the Coco coaching staff. They coached their tail off on this, never gave up on their guys, and encouraged it. I saw a lot of encouragement on the sideline. I think, at the end of the day, there was a lot of positive takeaways of what Coco really is, but this is a national team. This is so deep in talent. Javon Boggs played his tail off. Brady Hart got hit nearly every play and still stuck in there and threw that ball. And I'll tell you, Javion Hilson, as big and as talented as that IMG offensive line is, Javion Hilson held it together, did his job, did not stray away from his job. It's very easy to get frustrated, especially when you play edge rusher. AJ, this, to kind of get distracted. I saw a lot of discipline with him that night.
Yeah, Javion Hilson is special. I think he's a future first-round pick if he stays healthy and all goes well. He's a terrific talent, but like you and Baylin said, it starts in the trenches, and that's where IMG won the matchup. Obviously, on the skill, on the perimeter, they could play with IMG. Boggs had a 72-yard catch and run on the screen pass, so that shows that they have the skill on the outside of the perimeter. But on the trenches, IMG was just too much for him.
All right. Coco drops to 2-1. IMG to 3-1. IMG is actually playing right now, their 5th game. Big game. I know everybody looked at this. Lakeland goes into Lake Mary, the number 4 team, and Lakeland, I hate to say steal it, but, Lakeland survived this. They took out 35-34, Balin.
Heartbreaking. I mean, I watched this game live. Me and AJ were going back and forth. We both, before the last drive, pretty much said, Lake Mary, what a great victory this was. Jon Santucci called me and was like, I can't even believe this. I'm on the ride home from IMG, and I'm getting updates, and Lake Mary's about to beat Lakeland. The whole state was on notice for this, and I don't think many people gave Lake Mary a chance. People call me biased for picking them in this matchup. Obviously, I know why, but at the end of the day, Lake Mary has proven that they are a top dog in this. And if they were literally 1 field goal or a first down away from beating the number 2 now ranked team in the entire state of Florida, had them on their heels. I mean, Noah Grubb showed up in the biggest game of the year. This is their hardest matchup on their schedule, and he threw 4 touchdowns. Solidified himself as probably, arguably, again, one of the best in the state, if not the country, at that position, especially against Lakeland's defense, which their DB and their secondary is a pretty good unit there. And again, he never got touched, didn't get sacked one time in this ball game. Lake Mary's offensive line is the real deal, and it's about time that we really start talking about those guys. And I know I mentioned every week, but it's for real now. Lake Mary has made a statement, even though they lost. I wouldn't say moral victories, but if anyone deserves one, it's definitely Lake Mary. They went for the win. They went for 2. He overthrew a guy in the back of the end zone. He was open. He catches that. They win the game by a point, but you don't give up an 80-yard touchdown in a prevent defense. You just can't do that. That one hurt. And then if you make your field goal, they win by 10. So great job to Lakeland. They stuck to the game plan. They did not go away from what they did all night. They stuck with it, even though it wasn't working really. Lake Mary's defense was lights out in the run game. They just gave up too many big plays, and special teams was a difference. A missed field goal and a 99-yard kickoff return for Lakeland was really the difference between the two schools, and it's just heartbreaking. I still can't get over it, and this was a tough one. And Noah's birthday was the very next day, so having to, that game ended at 11:45 at night. So 15 minutes later, it's your birthday. It's like you went from thinking you're going to celebrate to heartbreaking loss, and then, as you mentioned earlier, Notre Dame lost. So it was a tough weekend for Noah, but man, Lake Mary, they obviously went up in a lot of polls and rankings in the state because of this, even though they lost. But it just shows you that Lake Mary's for real, and they have a chance to really compete in 7A.
I tell you what, AJ, for the second game during the season, their running back has had over 100 yards. Isaiah Thomas, 30 carries for 151.
Yeah, we always talk about Noah. Noah had 176 yards, 4 touchdowns. But Isaiah Thomas, he set the tone. When I say he was getting tough yards after tough yards, 30 carries, 151 yards. He had the touchdown in overtime. But Shenard Clower, he was the difference maker. He had over 330 yards of total offense for Lakeland. Lake Mary went for a field goal to go up 10 with a minute and 15 seconds to go. They missed the field goal. And the very next play, I told you, game ain't over till it's over. And Lakeland scored on the very next play on an 80-yard touchdown pass. So you get that kind of production. It's just speed. He was the fastest kid on the field. He was a legit 4.3, and you could see it. So shout out to Lake Mary, though. They played a great game. Tough way to lose, but Lakeland, they showed why they're back-to-back state champs.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got Jon Santucci with USA Today. You're watching the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. We'll be back in 30 seconds. All right, welcome back to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That's Baylin Trujillo, AJ Brooks, and our guy, Jon Santucci from the USA Today. John, we saw some good games this past weekend.
Yeah, man. I think this is the most off first 3 weeks of the season. I mean, you think that you have a good beat on going into the year on what the football is going to look like, and by the end of week 1, you didn't. And then week 3 was more of the same. You guys just talked about the Lake Mary game, maybe game of the year already in week 3. Yeah, just crazy games. I don't know how many people had Chaminade beating Heritage. Statewide, it was a phenomenal week of football.
We talked about that. Another big game you and I were at was Cocoa IMG, and I talked a little bit about that. I thought Cocoa played very well with considering the amount of talent IMG had, and I was really impressed with the coaches' game plan as well as how they coached on the sidelines.
Yeah. By the way, quick shout out to you, man. All the media that was at IMG, and you somehow mentioned everybody but me. Appreciate that shout out, my friend.
I did say that.
You did not.
I did.
We can rewind the tape a little bit, but anyways, you know what? I think I loved IMG's game plan. You know, they had a clear advantage in both the offensive and defensive lines, and they just manhandled them up front, both sides of the ball. I mean, their run game starting in the second quarter was just so efficient, so crisp. You know, I love Michael Carroll. He's one of the best offensive linemen in the state of Florida, right behind Solomon Thomas on my board as the number 2 guard in the state, headed to Alabama. You know, he looked phenomenal. You know, Strayhorn, all those guys, that's a really, really good offensive line. And like you said, right, Hilson played well and they were a wall. So I remember there was a 3rd and 20 play IMG had in the third quarter, and I could have gotten a pass off, man. Ty Hawkins had all day back there to throw. There was nobody near him. So yeah, just great job by their O-line, D-line. It's not often that you see a guy 3-step and throw and he's getting destroyed on step 2, right? So, I mean, I don't care who's playing O-line. That D-line with Alex McPherson and Jake Cruel was legit. So, yeah, that's where they won the game.
Balin?
Yeah, John, just want to talk about your now opinion on Lake Mary. I know you were we talked like earlier. You were a good inside source on Lakeland when they played Central. You told me you were one of the only ones that really told me Lake Mary actually had a shot in this football game. A lot of people didn't even give them any type of credit. One prediction had that game a blowout. Obviously it wasn't. You were talking to me during the final moments. You even said, you agreed. It can't believe Lake Mary just beat Lakeland. And then, of course, as AJ mentioned, game's not over till it's over. What are your thoughts on Lake Mary as what they did against Lakeland? Obviously, you guys have Lakeland ranked really high. And where those two programs are headed in their respective classifications.
Yeah, so let me say this. I've loved Lake Mary for 2 years now. You know, I've said to you and everybody else who will listen, Noah Grubbs to me as the best pure arm talent in the state of Florida. You know, he's just got an absolute cannon on his arm. And he makes it look so effortless, right? But you know, the bad thing about when I say that is we don't talk about the touch that he has on some of those throws. I mean, he's legit. They have one of the best running backs in the state that nobody talks about at all. And, you know, this is a team, like you said, the O-line for 2 years has been really good. I don't think they gave up a sack last year until the Seminole game. And I was a huge Josh Raymond fan. You look now and they've got 2 more really good tackles out there that are doing a great job protecting their quarterback. So I think Lake Mary's going to win a lot of games, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them playing into December. I will say this is just my own person. I hate the prevent defense. I don't know why you play one defense every other snap of the game and then you go to a shell that is designed to give up yardage. I've just never understood that. If you're going to live with it for 4 quarters, play 5 more snaps with your base defense. That's just me. But I think Lakeland is the real deal. Lakeland goes to Miami week 1 and beats Miami Central without 4 of their top offensive playmakers, right? And so then they go to Lake Mary and win. I mean, this is a team that still hasn't played a home game, and they have 2 signature wins. So, you know, I think 5A looks like it's going to be Lakeland and St. Thomas Aquinas. I don't see another path for another team. I'm sorry. So, and I think that's the showdown we all want to see at this point.
AJ?
Yeah, John, how you doing tonight, man?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. I got a question. We got an interesting matchup this week, Seminole versus Monarch. What is the status for Jabari Brady? Is he eligible to play, or what's the deal with him?
That's a great question. I had some people reach out to me actually on his behalf, seeing if he would be eligible. And I said, you got to talk to the school because I'm definitely not the FHSAA predictor of what mood they're in. My guess is he'll be eligible, but that's a pure guess. That's just speculation on my part. But, you know, I want to see what Monarch does offensively. This is a Monarch team that in their season opener pretty much used Samari Reed out of the Wildcat just about every play. And he was a monster in that game. I think at some point you're going to want a quarterback to throw the ball to Samari and to Jabari Brady. I mean, I saw those 2 last year. They were phenomenal. And you get those guys loose in the open field, forget it. So it'll be very interesting to see what schematically they come out with against Seminole. And I for Seminole, you're kind of going, we didn't know what to expect anyways, right? Because they were so wildcat in that first game, because that's kind of how the game went. So you're kind of like, hey, are they going to run a base offense, or is this their base offense? And now with Jabari Brady, whether he plays or not, that's just another wrinkle that coaching staff has to worry about. So that game probably has as much intrigue as any in the state right now, I would say.
All right, well, guys, we're going to get right into our dudes of the week from last week, get John's opinion on some of the talent we get, but let's get right into it. All right, how about our offensive dude, Xavier Irizarry, AJ? The senior quarterback at Leesburg, 14 to 21 for 209 yards, and Baylin 5 touchdowns.
Wow, unreal. I mean, yeah, it was against, I believe, Eustis, right, AJ? But regardless, special performance, 5 touchdowns in any football game. I don't care what it is. You're probably going to be our dude of the week. So great job to Leesburg's quarterback. It's his opportunity now. Obviously, your boy went to TFA, Solomon George's. So it's his show at Leesburg, and he's definitely fit in the role. And they're rolling, man. Leesburg's a scary team, AJ.
Yeah, Xavier transferred in. Like you said, 5 touchdowns is 5 touchdowns. The score was 56 to nothing at halftime. So he did what he had to do first half, and yeah, he had a terrific game.
All right, let's talk about our Influencer Council defensive dude, Javon Peterson, the senior outside linebacker at Seminole. 9 tackles, had 5 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss, and a fumble recovery, Balin.
Man, elite. This is the second week in a row we have a Seminole player to win another dude of the week. So that's great job performances for those guys over at Bokie Town. 9 tackles is good. First fumble and fumble recovery, 3 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. That's pretty impressive especially for an outside linebacker. So great job, Peterson. And you might need a big one like that this week because you got Monarch and company coming.
AJ?
Yeah, ain't no might about it. He will definitely need another performance like this. He's more of a outside linebacker, DN, edge rusher type. So 5 sacks though, that's enough sacks for some kids' season. So yeah, that's a terrific game.
And Javon Peterson.
Yeah, that's a sick number, man. 5 sacks. I don't care who it is. That sticks out, man. 8 plays in the backfield. That's unheard of in high school football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How about our Influencer Council special teams dude, Logan Calder? Man, he's a 5-star kicker. Was 7 out of 8 from PATs for Oviedo's big win, Balin.
Yeah, I like this. We're finally starting to give kickers attention they deserve. Probably Lake Mary's kicker would have been on this if you would have just sealed the deal there. But great job to Logan from Oviedo. This is our second week in a row with another kicker as our special teams dude of the week. I think Oviedo, if you're kicking 7 of 8 PATs, that means there's a lot of touchdowns you're scoring. So that's a great job for Oviedo and what they're doing offensively to give guys like Logan opportunities to get on the field and kick extra points or field goals or however that looks. But great job to Oviedo and what they're doing offensively to get those guys opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Points done by in high school football. So when you have a dependable kicker that can get you, extra point, and their offense was clicking, so they didn't need him to get any field goals. But yeah, he had a terrific game. His upside is very high at kicking.
And I know, John, you don't talk a whole lot about special teams throughout the year, but it's got to be pretty impressive to hit 7 of 8.
Yeah, we talk about special teams a lot when it doesn't show up. But you know what? I agree with everything. I agree with everything Balin said, and that hurts me a little bit to say out loud. But when you're running your kicker on and your extra point team on 8 times, there's a lot of things going right. So nice job by him.
And a lot of things can go wrong.
Yeah. Not when you're scoring 8 touchdowns. No, a lot's going right.
All right, guys, before we get into our week 4 predictions, let's go through our 2 top 10 presented by Big Hits Live. Let's start with number 10. Yeah.
I have one request. Can I give a player of the week shout out? I have to do that for an honorable mention.
There you go.
Jon Santucci might really like this one. Preston Wright from Shamana Madana was 27 of 43, 487 yards, 4 touchdowns, 528 total yards in their big upset win, 48-45 over American Heritage. No one really gives this kid enough credit. He took Trinity Catholic to 2 state championships his sophomore and junior year. He decided to bet on himself, moved to Miami, had a situation where he was in a three-way quarterback competition. Zach Katz, another phenomenal talent. And then you have the sophomore that earned the job in camp. And then he finally took the reins in the biggest matchup of their season at this point, and he put all the doubters in silence. And I'm so proud of that kid. He comes up every Sunday the last couple of weeks to train with me, and talking about adversity and how he's battled adversity and staying mentally strong, especially your senior year, to go out there against American Heritage and put almost 500 yards of offense in the air with 4 touchdowns and a win. Shout out to Preston Wright and what you've done and what you're going to do hopefully throughout the season for Chaminade.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I reached out to him this week too and congratulated him. John, one of the things I wanted to ask you before we get into our top 10 is, we're 3 weeks in. Are there any standout performances or players that really weren't on the radar 3 or 4 weeks ago out of Central Florida?
I'm not sure I'm prepared to answer that question off the top of my head. I'd have to really look at it, to be honest. I mean, nothing's like jumping out, and it probably should be. It's just not. I was not prepared to answer that question. I didn't know.
Fine. Then I'm gonna follow with this. Let's talk about some of the commitments and some of the recruiting news that we've seen here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, can I just go back to this one because I don't know if you guys touched on this. Javon Boggs, flipped to UCF a couple weeks ago. Boggs had over 100 yards against IMG. So in the last 15 games, he's had 100 yards against Venice. He's had 100 yards against IMG. He's had 100 yards against St. Thomas Aquinas. He's had 100 yards against Mainland. He's had 100 yards against O'Galley. And I'm leaving some out, man. That's insane. I know some of that's a product of their schedule, but that kid shows up every single week, and it doesn't matter how many 5 stars he got on the other side of the ball. So I just want to say that really impressed me because guys don't do that ever. All right. What was the original question? What commitments do I like?
Well, I mean, yeah, let's talk about some of the commitments, some of the recruiting news here over the last few weeks because things are really starting to heat up.
If I'm Florida State, I'm hitting the panic button just a little bit right now because you can't lose 2 defensive linemen in 4 days or whatever it was. They lost Javian Hilson, which to me is the best edge rusher in the state of Florida. And Dan, you kind of touched on it. I think people don't realize how good of a run stopper he is. He's one of the best high school run stoppers I've ever seen as an edge who can also get after the quarterback. So that's a huge, huge loss for Florida State. I don't know if I can stress that enough. And they also lost Myron Charles, who flipped to Texas. So bad week for Florida State, right? And obviously Tramel Jones goes down and that could be a lengthy recovery. So just not a good week if you're a Seminoles fan right now. I love what Penn State's doing. I love what Texas is doing in Florida. Penn State is ruling South Florida right now, which is crazy impressive. They've gotten some really good kids. Nashawn Montgomery went to Florida. I love that pickup for them. I think Nashawn's kind of a polarizing guy, and I'm not really sure why, but you watch the Lakeland game, and he just made plays in the fourth quarter and made some really good players, grasp for air. So I like Nashawn a lot. I like some of what Florida's done. Florida's got to keep this class together, though. You got to win, right? You got to beat A&M. You've got to win. You got to beat UCF if you're Florida. You don't want to start going 1-3, 1-4, whatever the number would be. Not just for Napier,
because the heavy end of their schedules, the last 5 weeks of the schedule. I absolutely agree with you. I want to go back to Javon. I want to go back to Javon Boggs. And you and I saw something. You talked about the score that he had. One of Brady Hart's picks was actually him throwing off his back foot because he had somebody in his face. Javon had him deep. I mean, Javon flew past. And a lot of people talk about Javon as a possession receiver. He took care of business from the outside. And that one short pass that he took the distance, he made some incredible moves to make that play. But I want to make it known, he had that secondary beat deep. If Brady could have had another split second, it was over with.
Look, 2 of those interceptions I don't put on Brady at all. You have a defender in your face and you're trying to make a play and it just happened bad, right? There's one of those picks too where I just thought the IMG player just made an amazing break.
He made a great play. Yeah, he did. He jumped in front of it.
You look at the stats and you go, Brady didn't have a great game. Very few human beings would want to get up time after time after time. So let's just say that. Javon's a dude. Right. I mean, this is Mr. Florida from last year. That's not if you win Mr. Florida in a year that Jeremiah Smith is in the state, you're doing a lot of things right. Jeremiah Smith's the best high school football player I've ever seen. So to put Javon out there as Mr. Florida, which I feel was deserved with the season he had. John Garcia's made this comp. I'm not going to take credit for it because it's not my idea, but I love it. He's very similar to Brandon Innes, right? Thick lower body. You say he's a possession receiver. I get that because he's not a burner, so they automatically get tagged as a possession receiver, but try running him down. It just doesn't happen a lot, right? So a guy who's got enough speed, a guy who runs very precise routes. He can get loose in a phone booth, right? I mean, he runs perfect routes. And he gets the job done. He gets the job done against, you look at the DBs that he's played against the last, 12 months. Charles Lester, a 4-star, a 5-star by some people's rankings last year, absolutely dominated him. I think St. Thomas had 4 guys go P4 last year from their secondary. They took turns getting beat last year. IMG put a couple really good guys on him. Didn't work out most of the game. So, he's super special. And just because he's not running a 4.3 doesn't mean the guy can't get the job done,
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Baylin, AJ, let's put up our top 10 and get John to comment on how we're doing with this. All right, let's start with number 10, Spruce Creek, still undefeated at 3-0. OC University at 3-0. O'Galley moves up to number 8. Edgewater's at number 7 at 2-1. Dr. Phillips at 2-0. TFA's in the number 5 spot now at 3-0. Lake Mary takes a little bit of a leap over Seminole. Seminole at 2-0, number 4. Lake Mary at 3, Jones 2, and Cocoa, even with that defeat, stays our number one team there, Baylin.
Yeah, I think, TFA. We don't really talk about them much in this show so far. I'm sure we will when we get to our top games because they have a big one this week. But my goodness, I mean, dude, they just completely destroyed Treasure Coast, 42-7 in a blowout win. TFA obviously beat Edgewater, which is why they're ranked in front of them. They got a game with Seminole towards the end of the year. I know they're really looking forward to that matchup. They just continue to stack up great quality wins in big, impressive fashion. So I would not be shocked based off performances the next couple weeks if they don't even climb up to number 3 or even maybe 2 at some point because that team is rolling. I'm glad that they're now part of our top 10. I think Bishop Moore is going to squeak in there too at some point. They deserve to be talked about, one of the big boys as well. But I think, with Lake Mary's close victory or a close loss, however you want to call it, to Lakeland, they deserve to be in our top 3 teams in Central Florida, regardless if they have a loss on their record. That is a quality loss and a quality opponent compared to some of these other teams that are ranked below them because they haven't played that tough of competition. So they've got to earn their way up. But I think TFA, out of all the names that we talked about, have earned their way into where they are in our rankings, and they could be a little higher. But, yeah, Lake Mary jumped Seminole. Seminole, they're winning in blowout fashion, but from what I hear, it's just something's a little off in that program. Not the program, but, just doesn't look clean. I'm waiting for, a really good, clean, complete game where they're going to probably win 60-0. But, yeah, that's why Lake Mary jumps them. And then Jones, they got a big one this week as well with Edgewater top 10 matchup, which I'm excited about. But O'Galley is really the only team that really moved up 2 spots this week. They've earned it because of the schedule and the dominant fashion that they've played so far this season.
AJ, let's talk about our private school top 5. Halifax Academy's at 2-0. Ladarius Simmons is a pretty impressive little quarterback.
Yeah, Ladarius Simmons is very impressive at Halifax over in Daytona. He's doing a good job leading them. But Bishop Moore, my alma mater, I like what I see out of them. They won a big-time game last week versus Bartow. So that's a big win for them. Melbourne Central Catholic at the 2 spot. They got their hands full this week. So, it's a lot of good talent over there in the private school sector. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
And then Bishop Moore. John, your comments on our top 10 and our private school top 5.
I think you could put a box around 1 through 5 and say that there could be 4 of those teams in a state championship game in a couple months. I mean, I love TFA. I don't think they're getting enough respect. They're earning it though, right? I mean, first team to beat Edgewater in the regular season in 8 years, something like that. The way they beat Treasure Coast, I think the only teams that have put that number on Treasure Coast in the last 5 or 6 years is St. Thomas and I think Chaminade. that's really good company, right? So I think the Lake Mary Seminole winner, I thought last year, if Lake Mary stays healthy, that winner goes to the state championship game. I don't see a reason why I don't feel that way this year. Jones is playing at such a high level. They moved up to number 1 in 4A on our poll this week. And they got a great game this week, right? I'm going to be at that one. And then, Coco's Coco. And I feel like, in a lot of ways, 2A is interesting because Berkeley Prep's not having the season we thought they would. But, I think Pensacola Catholic has looked great. I think Bishop Verot has looked really good. Coco, I still think, is the team to beat, but I think there's a couple teams that might be able to score with them. So I would not be surprised to see 4 of the top 5 teams in the state championship game. The only reason why I can't be 5 is because Lake Mary and Seminole have to beat one of those guys, have to beat each other. So,
yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the 4 of us are going to go over the big games in Central Florida for week 4. You're watching the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the Central Florida High School Scoreboard Show. I'm Dan LaForest. That's Baylin Trujillo and AJ Brooks. Jon Santucci had to dip out for something else. But let's get right into our Week 4 matchups. And, guys, let's start with Ocoee at 2-1, heading over to DP, our number 6 team, at 2-0. Baylin?
Yes, this is going to be a great game. Honestly, this is one of these games I'm excited about because of how well Ocoee is playing offensively. We know they have a really good defense. Dr. Phillips better come to play. This could be an interesting matchup here. I am taking Dr. Phillips to win this football game. I believe hopefully it's not looking like it's going to be clear skies, but if it is, I'd take Dr. Phillips 10 out of 10 time in this matchup. But if weather hinders that passing attack like it did last week against Apopka, don't be surprised for an upset here for Ocoee. Again, they're starting to find their identity offensively. We know they have a really good defense. Michael McClendon, obviously one of the best linebackers in the entire state of Florida, especially statistically. These numbers are outrageous. It's almost like playing a video game. But I still believe Dr. Phillips is just a little bit much better and more organized as an offense right now, and that's why I'm taking them in this matchup.
AJ, Ocoee just seems to get better and better. And I talked to Coach Buck Gurley today, and he said, Dan, he goes, honestly, offensively, we're much better than last year. Still a couple pieces away, but, he likes his chances going into Dr. Phillips.
Yeah, this is a much improved team. Last year they took they had some growing pains, so to speak. But this year, strong defense, offense is looking much better. But I like DP to win this matchup. I think Stanley will take care of things no matter if it's wet or dry. I like DP to come away with the victory.
All right, let's get into it. We talked about this earlier. Monarch comes up from South Florida, 1-0 to take on the boys from Bokie, our number 4 team. Baylin.
Yeah, Seminole might actually give me some credit this week. I'm picking the Seminoles. Wow, AJ, this could be our tiebreaker game for who takes the lead going into next week. I just believe that Seminole, regardless of what I said earlier about they're trying to find their identity, I know they've won in blowout fashion both weeks, so it's not like they're winning close games. But from what I hear, I'm waiting for that complete Seminole team to come together and put a statement on. And this could be one of those type games where if they do that against Monarch, they're gonna shake a lot of people's heads. Like, okay, this team is still a Seminole we think about. I think from a roster standpoint, they're still probably the best in Central Florida from top to bottom. I think once they get these things situated and finding their identity, both in the air and on the ground offensively, I think this team is the sky's the limit. Obviously, I think that they're going to go to the state championship this year or at least compete for it with Lake Mary. So I'm taking the Noles in this matchup and a big win. I think they put it together this week, Dan and AJ, and this would be the one to be like, okay, Seminole is for real.
All right, AJ.
Yeah, man. I love Seminole, man. It's one of my favorite programs, Bokie. But I just don't think that they're the team that we will see at the end of the season. With the amount of transfers that have come over, new quarterback, new running backs, new receivers. The offensive line and the defensive line isn't the same. They will get better as the season goes along. But I think that Monarch is a team that they're bigger, faster, stronger, so to speak, in some of those key positions. So I'm going to go with Monarch.
All right, so let's move on. Ocala Vanguard rolls into Leesburg. Frank Scott keeps the Leesburg Jackets rolling. They're at 3-0, Balin.
Yeah, very impressive. Leesburg is obviously they're unbeaten. I think Vanguard, the mental battle. I think Leesburg can probably match up with them skill for skill. They arguably have one of the best players in Central Florida on their football team. But I just think that Vanguard might be a little bit like what AJ just said, a little bit more bigger, faster, stronger, maybe even in the trenches. And this is why they're probably going to come away with the victory here, and that's why I'm picking Vanguard. Leesburg, honestly, they haven't really played much competition. They've blown out pretty much all three of their victories, so it's not like they've been battle-tested. Vanguard's 2 wins were quite impressive. They do have a loss on their record, but I think they're more battle-tested than Leesburg, especially when it comes to bigger opponents. But Leesburg is a phenomenal football team. I understand why AJ took them here. They do have an awesome chance to win. I think this is like the Coe Dr. Phillips game where it's a toss-up. Could go either way. But I think from a mental standpoint, I think Vanguard is clearly the team in their eyes to beat. And I think that mental hump to get over, you're going to have to play a pretty good football game and not have to go with those distractions to get over that to come with a victory for Leesburg. So I'm taking Vanguard.
AJ?
Yeah, I mean, Vanguard in that Marion, Lake County, Sumter County area, Vanguard is the top dog. But I like what Leesburg is shown. I think they have a strong offensive play. They have a ton of weapons. All the weapons did not go to TFA. Some of them still stayed at Leesburg, and it's showing with the offensive production and defensive production that they're able to have. I think Leesburg handles it, and I think they get the victory.
All right. How about the Boone Braves at 2-1 going into West Orange? The Warriors are 2-0 starting out the season, Balin.
Wow. Okay. I'm liking this. This is going to be a fun week of football here. Yeah, I like what West Orange does. I'm not going to discredit West Orange here. Brian Dillard, phenomenal talent. He can play anything really offensively, whether it's quarterback, receiver, DB. You can put him anywhere. He's a great talent. AJ Chung, he's in the ranks waiting for his opportunities too as well. So I like West Orange. The defense is really good. One of their guys just won our, I believe Devontae won one of our defensive dudes of the week a couple weeks ago. Special talent. But Boone High School, I think offensively, they're averaging well over 350 yards of offense each one of the 3 games. Mizell is playing lights out. Sam Johnson's getting it together. They have a really good running game. Their trenches are pretty big. I just think that might be too much for West Orange. West Orange they're about 39 to 40 players deep on varsity. So, you're going to have to go deep in the trenches and find some type of, I would say player personnel against a team like Boone, who's coming with like 70 players. So I think that Boone High School wins this in a close game, whether it's by 3 points or maybe within a touchdown. But I do believe the Braves are going to come out victorious in this matchup.
AJ?
Yeah, Coach Johnson is a terrific coach over at Boone. So I'm not surprised by how the team is reacting this year. But it's just something about West Orange. I know they took a lot of growing pains last year. But I think that the defensive backs will be able to neutralize the offense, the passing attack of Boone. So that's why I'm going with West Orange. I think that DB play is top tier. I think they have one of the best defensive back rooms in the area. And I think that at home, I think they'll be able to get the job done.
Oh, absolutely. And, I really like this matchup in general. I think there's a lot of great talent that's going to battle close. I think this is going to be a close game. I really believe the score is going to be close on this. All right. The 101 meeting of Osceola and St. Cloud, guys, 101st. It's amazing. This might be the longest standing rivalry in Central Florida. Cowboys at 2-1. 2-1 playing St. Cloud Bulldogs 2-1. Balin.
Yeah, there might be over 100 games played, but I'm pretty sure there's over 100 wins one way in this rivalry, and it's probably Osceola's way. So we call this a rivalry because of the number.
It's actually pretty split. I think it was like 52-48 last year, if I remember correctly, AJ.
No chance. There's no way. Maybe it is. No discredit to St. Cloud. But Osceola, I mean, they've won the district championship 20 plus straight years. So I don't know. That's 20 wins in that district, and it's probably over St. Cloud. So I don't know where those victories came. Maybe when they first started these programs back in the day. But
in the 20s.
As long as I've been alive, I don't ever think that St. Cloud's beaten Osceola, and I've been alive for 32 years. But I mean, and that's not changing this year. We're going to keep that O with Osceola, especially in the rain. There's no way St. Cloud. Now, if they would have blown out Point Siena last week, okay, maybe. But because they lost that way, there's no chance they beat Osceola this week, at least in my opinion. I mean, obviously football's played and you play the game, but I believe Osceola, they're a lot better football team this year, and they still blew out St. Cloud last year in a down year. So imagine that. So, yeah, I just think that they're a little too much in the trenches, and I believe their bread and butter's on the ground. And if it's raining or shining, they're running all over St. Cloud.
AJ?
Yeah, I like Osceola to win this matchup as well. It's a rivalry game, so it could go either way. It could be a close battle for 4 quarters, or it could be a Miami Florida Gators type of game. So I'm not too sure which one we'll get, but I'm pretty confident that the Cowboys will come out victorious.
All right, let's move on. Bishop Moore, our private number 1, goes into Mount Dora. Now, here's the significance of this, guys. The head coach for Bishop Moore, Matt Hedrick, played quarterback for Mount Dora. And I can't remember the last time these guys played, Balin.
Yeah, me neither. And I don't remember the last time Mount Dora can say they beat Bishop Moore, because it's not happening this year. Bishop Moore is winning this football game in blowout fashion. I believe this is not even close. And granted, Mount Dora is unbeaten. So that is great job to that program. That was a program we never talked about in recent years, and now they're being talked about. That whole culture is changing over there. I love that. I love the fact. I mean, they have one of the coolest stadiums. I don't know if you guys ever been there. One of the coolest stadium environments. It looks like Clemson. It like drops into a bowl. It's a pretty cool and unique situation over there. But Bishop Moore, they're, like I told you guys earlier, they could be in our top 10 in our normal rankings because how good this football team is. They've proven it. They went on the road to New York. They beat a team that was in the state championship last year in New York. They beat them soundly. They beat Bartow last week. This team is for real. Bjorn Jurgensen and company. I love this football team. I think that it's setting up to where they might be unbeaten going into the last game of the season against Lake Mary. They do have a couple, good opponents, but this ain't one of them for them at least this week. So I'm taking Bishop Moore in a big win.
And Balin, just so you know, they got St. Thomas Aquinas coming to town here in a few weeks as well.
As I was talking, I realized I'm like, wait a second, I might want to pull back.
That's a game I'm planning on being at. I'm excited to watch that matchup. AJ, he mentioned Bjorn Jurgensen, but Mount Dora's got a pretty good quarterback, and I think it's Jake Seepy.
Yeah. Mount Dora definitely has a quality quarterback.
And running back.
Tamir Gaines transferred from Eustis. Last week he had 5 touchdowns rushing. So the kid is dynamic. I know when I graduated in 2004, we did play Mount Dora. That might have been the last time they played, and Bishop Moore was victorious. And I expect them to continue to roll.
And AJ Brooks had 5 touchdowns. Is that correct?
I think, honest to God, I think it was either 4 or 5. But yeah, it was something like that. But yeah, I think Coach Hedrick, he will beat his old school, and he'll be glad to do that. So yeah, I'm pulling for my Hornets Friday for sure.
All right. So how about Evans, 1 and 2? Obviously, we talked about Evans going into Point Siena at 4-0.
Evans is now slowly becoming one of my favorite teams. Not because they fought Jones hard, but because of what Odom is doing. And I love hearing what AJ said about the program. I don't know much within the program that's going on. I know AJ's pretty tight with those players, especially with what he's doing 7-on-7 wise and the Elite 100. So I know he knows these players well. He had a really cool photo that he took after the game with a bunch of players. It almost looked like just a great, solid group of kids that would just compete at a high level. But Coach Odom really has his program rolling in the right direction. There's no way I would ever pick Evans against Point Siena. I think you have Point Siena 3-1, Dan. I believe they're still unbeaten.
Yeah, I said they're 4-0. They're 4-0.
But yeah, our prediction was wrong last
3-0. Excuse me, 3-0.
Yeah. But yeah, I like Evans in this matchup. I think they're just. I believe this might be the game where they kind of got confidence through Jones and playing them hard that they might blow out Point Siena. And Point Siena is a good football team, as they've proven last week against St. Cloud. But I love Evans. I want Evans to be great. I love the Oak Ridge story when they were good. I love Jones' story now, and I want Evans to be back. They were probably the head of the three, obviously in the 90s, and actually going to a state championship. So I want Evans to be back, and I think this is slowly starting to turn the tide towards that direction.
AJ?
Yeah, I believe in this program. The coaching staff is doing a terrific job. But Evans being back is a scary sight for Central Florida. I can tell you that right now. All schools in the county, they don't want Evans to be back. So they got a tough matchup. They got to travel to Poinciana. I think they'll leave about 4:30. Try to beat that traffic. But Poinciana is a tough matchup. So we'll see Cam Brown, Ernest Nunn. But I like Evans. Yeah, I'm going to go with the Trojans for sure.
All right. How about TFA? Number 5 rolls into our P number 2, MCC. Balin.
Yeah, if I wasn't taking my wife on a date tomorrow because she deserves it for all the traveling I've been doing, I probably would have went to this game because this is probably my favorite game on Friday night. Brogan McNabb, the quarterback at MCC, the transfer from Holy Trinity, he's averaging 5 touchdowns a game, just like he did last year. And this is going to be a big test for MCC. First Academy, unbelievable. I think they win in a big fashion. I believe this is not close, but I do believe Brogan's going to have a really good football game in this matchup, to help him in his recruiting. He's starting to get a couple Division I programs offer him as of late. But this is the district championship. This is for all the marbles, I believe. And this is early, week, 3 or 4. They're already talking about district championships because they have OCP out there who's kind of starting to figure themselves out. Holy Trinity, MCC already blew them out 50-0. So, this is it. And, I think Melbourne Central Catholic's going to give them everything they got, whatever that looks like. And I just don't think it's enough to beat a solid TFA team that beat Edgewater, that just completely destroyed Treasure Coast. TFA is the real deal, guys. I'm a believer now. I think they could compete with anybody right now in the state, in my opinion.
All right, now our game of the week, the number 7 Edgewater Eagles at 2-1 goes into Camping World Stadium to play the number 2 Jones Tigers, currently at 2-0. Guys, they had to move it to Camping World. This has been such a big matchup the last few years. Edgewater, Jones, playing each other at least twice a year. You never know who's going to win, and it's been a tide. It's been back and forth. Jones wins one, or Edgewater wins a game. Jones wins the playoff game. Same the last 2 or 3 years. Balin, this is a big matchup.
This is. I'm going to be at this game. I believe you guys will also be at this game. I'm excited. Obviously, you see where my head's at in this prediction. I think that Cameron Duke's Edgewater team, they find a way to beat Jones in the regular season. That's just what it is. They're going to win on the ground, and usually in September, October, it's raining, so they have the advantage because what does Jones like to do? Air it out. So, and then when it comes to playoff time, we see, clear skies, and Jones takes the victory in pretty much, big fashion. So, last year was a very close matchup in the playoffs. They obviously got the win over Jones in the regular season. I don't remember the last time Jones beat Edgewater in the regular season. It's been a couple years, if not 3 or 4. So Edgewater has got the upper hand now. But I do believe Jones, the way that they're competing, just like John said earlier, they're playing at an elite level. Darion Coleman, obviously a kid that I train, special talent. Carter Emanuel, special talent, kid I train at Edgewater. I hope both these guys have phenomenal games, and may the best team win. And I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to it.
AJ?
Yeah, we talk about this matchup. Edgewater, I love everything about Edgewater. I went to Edgewater 2 years. Carter Emanuel, as you mentioned, he plays on my 7-on-7 team, quarterback. Then we go on the flip side to Jones. Darion Coleman, the quarterback, he also plays on the 7-on-7 team. But when it comes down to it, I just think that Jones and Camperwell, that's just a different team. I don't remember them losing too many games. I remember Northwestern coming up and giving them a good beating. But besides that, Jones and Camperwell, I love Edgewater, but I just think that it's just something about Jones and Camperwell. And I think Jones will break the trend of losing to Edgewater in the regular season this season. So I like the Tigers.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to head into week 4. 70% chance of rain on Friday night, but I'm going to make 2 predictions before I get final thoughts. One is I won't be there Saturday night. I have a date with my wife. And the second is I don't think any of us are going to be at that 200th meeting of the St. Cloud Osceola rivalry. I'm just going to go out on a limb on that. Before we get going, Baylin, final thoughts.
Yeah, go Dolphins. I think they're playing right now.
They are.
But no, like I said, I'm excited to see the matchup between Cameron Duke and Coach Elijah Williams, two coaches that mean a lot to me. Obviously, Coach Will was my head coach. I love this game. I think this is the Super Bowl of the season every year for me. I always look forward to this matchup because it's always a good one. So I'm looking forward to it in Camping World on Saturday, guys. If you're watching Saturday at 5:00 is the game. Hopefully you guys can come out there and get a good showing because it's going to be a great football game. But man, this is we're getting almost to midway season, guys. This season's moving along, so let's enjoy this football while we have it. Hopefully this rain somehow goes away. There's no hurricanes in the forecast. It's just a lot of rain. I just don't understand. So, but as long as these games,
let's not jinx it, Balin. We're in peak season. We're in peak season.
Hey, God's got us, so we're good. But
AJ.
Yeah, enjoy these games Fridays and Saturday.
AJ, final thoughts.
Yeah, I just can't wait for Saturday. Two premier teams of Orange County, so we'll see. A lot of Edgewater has told me to express that they have a winning record versus Jones. So a couple of weeks ago, I said Edgewater was the second best team in the county. But when Jones wins the last 2 years in the playoffs, those wins just rank a little higher.
I tell you what, we're going to be hoping everybody plays safe, that we get these games in, everybody enjoys themselves. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This seems to get to be a more popular show than I think we even expected. For Baylin Trujillo and AJ Brooks, I'm Dan LaForest. We'll see you next week.